Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons, back again with your weekly dose of musical goodness. In this quick guitar tricks, we're looking at 3-note per string pentatonics, a great way of getting some fresh licks, working on your legato, hand strength, reach and joining up the fretboard. All of these examples are in B minor, jam tracks with the little I up there. So by the end of this you should have 4 new licks, some legato patterns, an idea of how to visualise these wide scales, and then these are pretty advanced licks, so if the stretches are too wide, just move them up the neck where the frets are closer together. And if you appreciate these videos complete with tabs and timestamps, let me know by clicking like and leaving a comment. Any sort of interaction really does give a huge boost to the channel. If you just want the licks, jump ahead using the aforementioned timestamps. But alright, before we break down the licks, first things first, here's the scale shape we'll be using, both tabbed and with a diagram. Now, if you already know the 5 pentatonic 2-note per string boxes, this can really help out. You might want to think of this as these two scale shapes, as indicated by the blue and green section dividers there, while being joined by the common notes, highlighted by that red box. So this scale, and this one. If you struggle to join up the fretboard, check out the quick trick up there on how to break out of boxes. Alternatively, you might find it easy to just think of this as a 3-note per string type scale. As a side note, all of these resources and tabs are on my Patreon at patreon.com/jbfmusic. You can get them for just $3. Personally, I use a combination of these approaches I just outlined here. How I'm thinking about will change kind of depending on the context. If I'm improvising, it's more likely to be kind of joined up scales, a cage system, moving up the fretboard. If I'm using a cross, I probably see them more as a kind of 3-note per string type of thing. So in a nutshell, either 2 overlapping scales or 1 big one. This first lick uses that shape and is mainly about getting a feel for this kind of playing. Okay, so you can pick this however you want, but legato works really quite nicely with this type of scale. You could even hammer on all the notes a bit like Alan Holdsworth, more on that with the card up there. I'm essentially picking the first note in every string, then hammering, pulling off as needed. Keeping a straight wrist is super important here. Check out the little I up there for some more top tips on wrist fatigue. In fact, if you feel oddly short of breath from these exercises, an overtly bent wrist may be the culprit, or at least partly to blame. You might want to try sitting in the classical position, guitar on your left knee, which I'm actually doing just now, otherwise my wrist would be at pretty much a 90-degree angle. The neck here is probably pointing up about 45 degrees, just as a reference. It's quite high, it's quite different to how I usually play, but to get access here, you just do what you need to do. The other factor is letting your hand move if it needs to, so rather than anchoring in one place, it's maybe not too bad with this lick, but as we move further down, if you start to feel kind of fatigue or pain, stop, take a breather, try to work out why this is happening. In an ideal world, you'd want to hammer on with the tip of your finger for the kind of best force to sound ratio, so you can use the least amount of force to get the best amount of sound using the tip because it's a smaller surface area. It's easier said than done though, particularly with some of these wider stretches coming up. The other tricky thing about this lick is it's in 16th notes rather than triplets. With the 3 note per string scales, we often want to play them as groups of 3 because it's so much more intuitive. Just kind of going up like that. And segueing quite nicely onto the next lick, which does in fact use triplets. Alright, just like before, here's the scale shape and the tab. It goes like this. Take a minute to get used to it if you need to, pause the video if you want to. It's basically using this pentatonic and this one. And if you already know this, then let's just crack on with the lick. Okay, so what we're doing here is using it to ascend, going up in this sequence. Just repeating that across the strings. Again, what I'm doing is just kind of legato, just hitting the string one time whenever I get it, and then using hammer-ons and pull-offs for the rest of it. So you can get an almost kind of folk metal if there's any hailstorms in the room. Yeah, well, that is worth considering if you want to get that sound, because this scale can evoke kind of Celtic folk, traditional Southeast Asian music, bluesy, and even modern metal if you think of like Andy James or Alexi Leo. Quite a wide palette to explore from one different way of playing a scale. Now, with these shapes, deciding whether your second or your third finger feels better is likely to be quite subjective. I'm trying to get in the habit of using my third finger more and letting my hand move a bit rather than lock it up. Now, I don't know if there's any legitimate evidence to support this, but over the past few months, I found this creates like much less tension and fatigue in my hand, so I've been making an effort to do it more. Having said that, with this lick, I've got way more consistency, still using my second finger on these first few strings. But the third does kind of just feel a bit better overall. The other thing that's worth mentioning, I'm still kind of fairly new to these. I'm still in the process of learning, so if I am handing out terrible information, do let me know and I will update it or redo the video at some point. But this is an area I've been meaning to learn about for ages and kind of explore the sounds of, so I'm glad I'm finally getting around to doing it. And here's a quick look at the scale shape we'll be using for the next lick. If you want to think of it as two different pentatonics, you can think of it as this one. And this one. Really similar idea as before. We're going up the scale, picking the first note in each string and then using hammer-ons and pull-offs. You might notice that when we go between the strings, for example, the 9th fret on the A string and the 14th on the low E, we're actually playing the same note. The eagle-eared among us will have noticed this is a type of timbral trill. For more on that, check out the tutorial up there. But the aforementioned triplets here, we're going up in groups of 6. It just helps make the sort of lick feel a bit more natural. And while the tumble trill makes it sound a bit less stock or predictable. Best of both worlds. Okay, we've got the final scale shape here. Goes like this. So it's these two common shapes. And this one. And the final lick. Okay, by far, for me anyway, the toughest of the lot. Feel free to move this up the octave, provided you've got 24 frets, it should be totally doable. Or if the stretch is a bit much, just jump up a few frets until it feels alright. Okay, so we know the pattern for the first 12 notes, it's just like the lick we've done before. This, I think it was lick number 2. The next set of 12 notes is a new one though. Here I'm trying to highlight that you can still use your 2 note per string pentatonic shapes in conjunction with this new 3 note per string approach. So you can use your tried and tested licks alongside this. And that's what I'm trying to do here. See in this bit here, instead of going up to that note, we're just going. So combining this one, and on the next set of strings, and you just take that along them until you run out of strings basically. Alright, and as a bonus for watching this far into the video, shout out to the Lick Squad Elite, you guys rock. You don't need to be quite so hasty, you can stay on one set of strings and really kind of build this lick up. So if we use this as an example, we could take the first part, and then maybe repeat the second one. And then we can just kind of improvise from there and see what happens. So let's go. A little bit sloppy, but you get the idea. You can kind of milk an idea more than just having to run through it. My favourite thing to do is probably milk it on the higher strings. So say we'd gone through this lick and we're on the G, we're going. Between the B and the E strings, we might want to repeat this phrase. Or you might want to improvise around it. Let's just see what comes out. So I got totally lost there and slopped my way out of it, but I'm sure you can do a much better job. If you like this, you'll probably also enjoy these 10 impressive pedal point licks. This has been Quick Guitar Tricks, that's the playlist there. But yeah, hit subscribe to keep up to date with the channel, leave me a comment, share it with your fellow musicians, and enable notifications by ringing that little bell on the side if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.